Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Joes of all ages, welcome to the main event of the evening. It's Talking Joe with Chief and Steve.
Yo! Yo, Joe! Joe!
Hey, me the dog of the chief, you...
Jabba no burger.
Nice.
It's S-Jubs. How's it going, Chief?
Yes, it is going okay, I think.
I sense some trepidation.
Well, I am backed up to the gills down here in Castle Chief. Actually, it's very cold. It's 5 degrees in my loft at the moment. It's 5 degrees C.
Well,
So-
I feel like taking a temperature check right now.
Do
What's
it.
the temperature? Oh, gosh. 22
What you got for me?
degrees centigrade
Okay. Yes.
up in Townsville.
Yes, very nice. But anyway, so I recently, or on this week's episode of The Outer Timers, the other show I do, we had Ben's wife come on and I was chatting to her, and one of the things we chatted about was my hobbies and me needing to kind of either scale back or get some kind of time management going on, and unfortunately I didn't do that, and it's kind of reared its ugly head this week. So I have only just prior to us coming on to record finished reading the 2 issues. I had to watch a couple of episodes of Clone Wars for the Clone Wars animated show recap podcast that I'm doing with Ben, so I had to cram those in between putting the kid down and then reading these issues and jumping straight onto here with you. I've got Outer Timers to record on Thursday, but there's a movie of the week that I need to watch that I haven't watched, so I've got to watch that tomorrow. I've also got to edit the Clone Wars episode, which will go out on Friday, which I haven't done yet. And then also, me and you have got a special Talking Joe episode to record ourselves on Friday, and I haven't done the homework for that yet.
Chief, your head's going to explode, buddy. Do you want to sit this one out so you can get a head start on those issues? I'll just solo this one.
Never. Prior to us recording, I sent you some images of something I received in the post today, and it was a couple of boxes of Star Wars Imperial Assault figures and expansions. So that is even more minifigures that are unpainted that now need to be painted. So I'm definitely going to do this at the weekend. Probably draw up like a pinboard of Chief activities and hobbies, and kind of not hardcore schedule them in for specific times and dates, but, well, no, actually, I'm going to do that. I am going to schedule in evenings of this, now you watch this, and this, now you paint this, now you read this, to initially for a few weeks, just to kind of get a handle on things. And I'm not going to try and spread myself too thin within each category. So rather than, I've got a Daredevil comic reread on the go with the 2000 AD one, with a Deadly Class one, and something else. I've got all these different rereads on the go. Pare all that down, keep it to the Weekly Joe stuff, and just maybe my Daredevil stuff. When that's done, move on to the next one. So I'm not feeling like I have to get through a certain amount of stuff within each genre. And also movies, rather than having to feel like, shit, I need to watch 5 movies this week. What's wrong with watching 2 movies?
Chief Stride, the Renaissance man of fan culture. You just do it all, bro.
How have you been?
Fine. I think I mentioned off air that every day is feeling the same. I am in this kind of no man's land of perpetual nothingness. It's very weird. There's no routine except the routine that I make for myself. But what is fun is, our fan pursuits, man. You're keeping me busy. With comic rereads and things like that, things that I otherwise maybe wouldn't be doing. So it does provide structure. And what better structure to have than the structure provided by Talking Joe?
That's
Hey,
it.
what fun. I got homework. Awesome.
Yeah. Good stuff. Listen, I sent you a picture. Oh, yeah, we're going to the Snack Police.
Oh, yeah!
Cheddar chips, crisps, biscuits and candy, washing them down with a whiskey or a brandy, chewy sweets, cookies, built around jerky, snacks running fair because we got them at our mercy. We're snackers, attackers, bad mother truckers, and we're eating all the crackers, munchers, crunchers, Knock out snacks like we're heavyweight punchers. The snack police are in his house.
Jeez, Chief,
So-
you're getting very, very, very technical in your snackage these days.
Well, there's a curveball there for you. I sent you a picture earlier saying, look, I made this sushi, this homemade vegan sushi, and
Let me
I was
guess,
gonna-
your daughter gobbled them up.
I was going to eat that on the show tonight. No, I gobbled it up because it's 10:09 p.m. over here in the UK, and that is way too late for the chief to be eating a meal. So,
So you're gonna give me a rating as like reported speech, like this snack was a.
No, I've got another one.
Very
I've
good.
got I'll send you a picture now, and also by the time this goes out, I will have posted the pictures of the previous snacks, which I still haven't done yet as time of recording. Add that to the list.
He's back with the naked.
Yes, it's an
Nacked.
NAKD full stop. Salted caramel,
Excellent. Let's see
Raw
how it
fruit.
compares to the banana.
raw fruit and
And-
nut. Yeah, what was it? It was just banana, the last one, I think, wasn't
No,
it?
wasn't it like strawberry? I don't know.
Oh, strawberry
something.
sundae. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was, yeah.
which sounds like a protein shake flavor.
So, very chewy, very caramelly, not getting any salt. Overall, though, pleasant.
Nice.
7 out of 10.
Anything that bears the salted caramel flavor, I think, is an instant turn on for me. I'm like, ice cream, yes, please.
Yep.
I
I
don't
do
know,
feel-
it seems decadent, you know, the salt and the sweet,
Yeah.
savory. And
I do
sweet.
feel that it is one of those trendy things, though. Go back like 2 years, 3 years, there was no such thing as salted caramel wherever you went. Now it's bloody everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't you find?
And same thing like the sushi revolution of the early noughties. Like,
Yeah.
no one ate sushi, and then all of a sudden everyone ate sushi. But maybe salted caramel is here to stay. Sushi certainly hasn't gone out of favor, and I can't stand the stuff. Oh, my snack, I don't even know what to expect because, you know, Talking Joe is the show that really breaks me out of my comfort zone. Biltong, this is not. It's
No.
gluten-free Harvest Snaps black bean baked crisps. But the illustration or the photograph on the package is dill pickles, like sliced pickles, or
Yes.
or gherkins, if you will, which just has me all kinds of confused. I don't know what to expect when I open this bag. Will it be beans? Will it be pickles? Will it be chips? I don't know. But here we go. I'm peering into the foil and
Oh, dear.
man, it looks like dog food.
Oh, no.
I will definitely take a picture of this for the socials, but I'm putting one in my mouth.
Anything could happen.
It's a lot more savory than I had expected.
Okay.
I
hope you got-
expected it to taste like cardboard, but it
Okay.
is not. They taste like those kind of air popped, you know, those inflated crisps, not crisps, maize snacks or
They're kind of
like
light.
knickknacks.
All right. Yep.
Huh. Okay. That is not unedible.
Not as bad as you anticipated.
No, made with select black beans. Okay, well.
Right.
fine.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah, I think I'll enjoy that.
Okay.
Breaking me out of my comfort
Have
zone.
you got a beverage to wash it down?
Just good old H2O, man.
H2O, life giver. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Fresh and cold.
That's it. Now then, issues of the week, because we are going to Comic Talk. It's Comic Talk, baby. Chief and Steve discussing like crazy. Larry Harmer riding these bad boys, making sense of the wackiest toys. Listen as we talk about story arcs, making noise louder than Junkyard Box, talking about character motivations and all the various G.I. Joe fun locations.
Oh, yeah.
And we've got issues 181 and 182 of Real American Hero. So let's do a quick cover check here. I've got the A cover, which is by Ron Frenz and Sal Buscema. And this is Destro, big head. And I'm not saying Destro's got a big head, but it's just a big Destro head on the cover. And because we know that some of his later figures had pinheads. But in the foreground, we've got the Baroness unleashing hell.
Yeah, it's cool. It looks very like spy movie because you've got those kind of like big globes in the background. Of course, it has very little relevance to the issue, so it doesn't pass the diagnostic test.
No.
The other cover is Herb Trimpe after
Yes.
Larry Hama pencils, and it's Darklon strangling out Roadblock from behind with his chain, which is very dynamic and has extreme relevance to the issue. Darklon's got these crazy glowing orange eyes. The helmet looks lovingly reproduced. And the helmet is quite a plot point, as we'll get onto later.
Most definitely.
Yeah, between the
couple of
two
good ones,
covers, I prefer Mr. Trimpies. Whoa!
I think I'll go the same, actually, yeah.
Okay.
Moving on to the next issue, we've got just a regular cover and Larry's retailer incentive. The regular cover is by Ron Frenz and Sal Buscema again. We got and it's kind of, whereas the last one was a big Destro head with Baroness in the foreground, here we've got a big Storm Shadow head with Snake Eyes in the foreground.
Abstract stuff. Maybe they were working on these covers without a sort of a plot outline from Larry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've only just spotted the yin yang, actually.
Yeah. It's interesting how they've posed Snake Eyes to fit in the black portion of the yin yang. I mean, he goes over the edges a little bit, but his posture is kind of setting up a yin yang shape, which isn't easy to do. I'm sure it was a challenge that the artist faced at the outset. He's like, hey, how do I get Snake Eyes to fill that black portion? Probably toyed with a few ideas.
And then the retailer incentive, we just get the pencils from Larry, and it looks like Road Pig is swinging his mallet, Zorana's there, and you'd be hard-pressed to guess who the third figure was if you hadn't read the issue, especially because it's a new character as well.
I imagine this was something he was going to kick over to Herb, but I don't know, maybe Herb's health had started failing at that point.
Yes, yeah. When did he pass away, Herb? Was it around this time? I don't know.
No, I think it was this... I could be completely wrong, but like I seem to feel like it was 2016.
Okay.
So it wasn't quite this era, but shortly after. Yeah.
Just for clarity, then, these are issues from 2012, August and September 2012.
Okay.
First issue here is obviously Larry Hama's script. S.L. Gallant is artist, and Gary Erskine is on inks with Jay Brown on colours. And for the next issue, I think we've got here, Ron Frenz is the art with Sal Buscema inking and Jay Brown on colours. Okay, well, I think what we need right now is Last Time on A Real American Hero. Immediately after the victory against the Blue Ninjas at Broca Beach, Cobra Commander attempts to capture the small band of G.I. Joes who assisted him. Destro interrupts and saves Cobra Commander and the Joes from bomb-wielding Blue Ninjas in guise of Crimson Guards. Snake Eyes, Scarlet and Stalker must infiltrate the San Diego Comic Convention to find a terrorist who is attempting to hand off a nuclear-triggering device to another agent. While the Joes track down the rogue terrorist, Cobra Commander attempts to sell the destroyed Broca Beach headquarters. Meanwhile, at the pit, just before he is in to be handed over to the International Court for War Crimes, Darklon delivers an ominous warning.
Good stuff, man, and thanks for that. Sometimes I need the recaps because, just like my days, these issues tend to blur into one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed these two issues, but I'm still a little bit confused about the overall things that are going on. I think I understood what was happening in these issues, but I don't understand the pulling of strings about why some of the stuff is happening.
It feels to me that instead of tying up loose ends, Larry just adds a new thread.
Certainly does.
You know, like you never quite get the satisfaction of like getting the whole master plan. I mean, like there's a erroneous appearance of a blue ninja in this issue, which like makes you wonder, well, okay, is he operating alone?
Exactly.
Is there still some kind of mastermind that he's taking orders from? So yeah, it's all sorts of confusing, but the elements that are there are satisfying.
Most definitely. I've written down, several pointers here, and I'm looking for motivations. So Blue Ninja's one of them. Zorana and Co. is one of them. Darklon, Pale Peony, Joes, and Destro. And I think they've all got motivations running through this storyline, but I'm just not really sure about any of the motivations of any of them. I haven't put Zartan on there as well because he wants to get back into Cobra Central Command rather than a hired gun. He wants actual status, as it were.
Seems a bit out of character for Zartan to want to be rank and file Cobra, card carrying. I always imagined he enjoyed his independence, but...
Yeah, he's gone this far, this long, without needing it, so I don't know what the sudden...
I guess him, like me, wants to see the glory days of Cobra reinstated. I'm like, come on, CC, start kicking ass and taking names, baby.
Yeah. I did mention Destro there briefly, and although he only appears in a couple of pages where he's some nice ones where he's fencing, he's not as in putting in fence posts. He's actually
Though that would be kind of funny.
Sword fighting, and
man of the land.
the Baroness is doing some admin on her computer. Her computer's got a really nice Destro logo stamped on the front, kind of in place of an apple symbol.
Yeah.
And she's tracing back all the company records and things of where he handed off the information to the Joes in those previous issues that led them to the comic convention. And she might have found something interesting. Do we really know why Destro gave them that information back in the previous issues? I'm just trying to, because obviously this whole thing stemmed from the information he gave the Joes.
He did mention something about getting the Joes to kind of do his dirty work. I think that was...
Anyway, we see something in these first few pages which we haven't really seen from Larry Hama in a G.I. Joe comic before. You know, the superhero genre, especially in the 90s, most definitely suffered from oversexed female characters in terms of their attire and their portrayal. And we kind of get that here in a parodying kind of comedy sense. Obviously, Larry's not putting it in there for any other reason than to say, look how ridiculous some of these superhero comics were. But it still felt a little bit out of place to me.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely had something to say. I mean, Larry has been to a lot of conventions, and I suppose he's witnessed firsthand the kind of harassment that female cosplayers get. So, yeah, man, why not make a very pointed remark within the comic that you're authoring?
Yeah.
Is that Power Girl that is being parodied?
I believe so, yes. Yep.
The sort of the boob window.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Brilliant. What a costume design.
That supposedly got explained. Jeff Johns, longtime DC comic writer, I haven't read it, but in a Power Girl comic, he had her explain as part of the story why she has that window cut out in her costume.
Oh, I'm dying to hear the explanation now.
And apparently,
do you remember it, Chief?
No, I haven't read it. I heard it on another podcast, but
is it not like the Punisher's idea behind the skull being a kind of a shoot me here?
Right. Okay.
Bad guys should aim for the chest.
I think it may well have been. Apparently, it went down really, really badly, and it was just like considered an awful piece of storytelling. But it was something along the ridiculous lines of, "I use my sex as a weapon against the enemy, to distract them," or something horrendous like that.
There's no other way to play it, is there? It's like it's the boob window. I mean, I'm absolutely going into battle with cleavage on full display. If you're not going to break the fourth wall and say this is playing into our target market, then you've got to make it about, I suppose, distracting the enemy.
Yeah, that's it.
Man, silliness.
Right, listen, back to the issue. One of the first things I wrote down here was, Darklon, is he now considered to be a creditable threat just off the back of these two issues, do you think?
I'd say so.
They've super powered him up, really, not in terms of his doesn't have superpowers, but in terms of intellect especially.
Yeah, man. He was just a wheeler dealer in previous encounters. Now he's very much a credible threat, backed up by a nerve center all the way in Darklonia that seems to have respawned its troop complement. So, I mean, G.I. Joe have abducted Darklon, and they, as you can possibly recall, laid waste to everyone in his organization. But they're all back and back at their jobs and doing famously.
That's it. And like you say,
also he's got mad tech, like troopers that can virtually disappear. Crazy.
I thought that's when they infiltrate the pit, don't they? The Mark IV Pythonized suits.
Yeah.
And I thought, while that was happening, it felt a little bit of a role reversal, because normally you see the Joes almost taking advantage of Cobra or the enemy and infiltrating and getting in under the radar, but the Cobra never, I know this is not Cobra, but no one ever seems to get one over on the Joes in that regard or be able to slip one past them. Now, obviously later on you find out that the Joes wanted Darklon to escape because they put a tracking beacon on him, but I don't know if they would have factored into the plans of some of Darklon's troops making it into the pit, or I suppose how else would he have escaped? I don't know, because Roadblock is kind of a patsy in a way, because he goes in to check on Darklon and Darklon overpowers him and gets out. But they might not have considered Darklon would have troops get into the pit as well.
Yeah, man. I can never quite decide who is playing into the infiltration and who is oblivious to it. Because Tollbooth driving that semi and having the AGPs fly up behind him is another example of like, okay, are you taking them to actually have active camouflage and be invisible? Or is he just really that bad at checking his rearview mirrors? What's going on, man? Because those things, they're there 1 second and gone the next.
Yeah.
I don't know. What did you take that to be?
Well,
Was that...
it only leads to another conclusion, which is he's in on it. But
yeah,
there's several times it's mentioned, these guys don't have a need to know. So Outback and Muskrat and Ambush, who go out chasing Darklon, they haven't got the need to know. But then even later on, Mainframe has pulled some information. Scarlet's asking about it, and Mainframe tells Scarlet, you don't have the need to know. You're not high enough rank. So it seems strange. I don't know what rank Tollbooth is.
There are only 3 Joes in that nerve center. Like, who does have the need to know? Is this just for Duke's eyes only? Seems that way.
I like Duke because there's a good page early on when he's saying about the throwdown, because we also get a bit of a flashback of what happened in the comic convention where Snake Eyes, they were tailing that person, and it turns out to be someone called Pale Peony? Would you pronounce it that way?
I'm so glad you took a stab at it first, Chief. Yeah, I will accept. Pale Peony.
Pale Peony, who has got some kind of Yakuza ties and has also... I just want to read out this bit. She was utilising esoteric techniques used by certain Yakuza clans. When Snake Eyes employed the Arashikage counter techniques, she switched immediately to non-lethal forms. And then Stalker comes up with, the inference is that she had encountered the Arashikage forms before and was not inclined to kill a member of that clan. Snake Eyes decided that since he already had possession of the drive, he did not want to continue a combat with a person who would defer to his adopted family in that way. Snake Eyes has purloined the drive. I'm going to keep calling it the Krypton drive, even though and then he's let her go, effectively. And there's this wordy explanation, which I found quite, sometimes when you're expositing, is that the word? Snake Eyes inner thoughts, inner thoughts, it can get a little bit, that just sounds a bit funky and not needed. But here, the Scarlet and Stalker kind of thing actually sounds okay. But the bit I really like is when Duke, he's in total I don't give a shit mode. He's like, okay, I'm glad he used his ninja pickpocketing skills to secure the drive, but I wish he had the girl to debrief, which is what he really wanted. He wanted her captured, but he doesn't give a shit about what Snake Eyes was doing.
It seems like Duke's being utilised as the hard ass again, which is welcome. That's how he was introduced.
Yeah.
And then he kind of became very much more background in Harmer's run. So it's nice that he's definitely not the kind of... He's the commanding officer you can respect, but not necessarily the one you like.
Yeah. Now...
not good cop.
I've got a question.
Sure.
Hopefully you can answer it. Pale Peony was there to hand off this drive to someone. We don't know who that someone was, do we?
Oh, Chief, you beat me to it, man. I was going to ask you the same thing. It's not made clear.
Okay.
If there was a handoff that was supposed to happen, they only intercepted the seller and not the buyer.
And do we know where she got that from? Is that from Darklon originally? Or am I completely barking up the wrong street?
I assume from Darklon. I mean, we know that Darklon is the Darklon's people are the ones who secured it from Mars, military armaments research system.
Yes.
Syndicate.
So this makes sense why Destro wanted the Joes to go in and snuff out the deal. Right, okay, because it was effectively something from his weapons cache. That yes, of course, yes, it makes sense.
I must say, I'm not a fan of Snake Eyes being explained by Scarlet. I mean, it borders on actual psychic link stuff. I mean, the detail. It's like maybe Snake Eyes had a written report and he handed it off, but like it feels like what am I saying? Another S. Scarlet has been reading Snake Eyes' thoughts all the way since issue 1, when he sort of waves his hands about, and she's like, what Snake Eyes is trying to say is, why don't we just bomb the island and take out Dr. Burkhart that way?
And look, you hit the nail on the head there. An operation like this would 100% have had an after-action report, which Snake Eyes would have filed and Duke would have read. So, maybe timelines are tight, but there you go.
There are other ways of skinning the cat, or debriefing the snake, as it were. But psychic link is Harmer's way of choice.
Yeah, ninja bullshit. So the other thing I like about these stories is we're getting loads of throwback characters here. We get Lifeline, we get Psych Out, we've got Tunnel Rats in there, Tripwire pops up, absolute
Your man
classics.
Blowtorch.
Is he?
In the next issue. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
No, that's cool. We discuss them all as one. That's fine. I must have missed that. When we look out for him in a minute, then.
There's a cameo on one page where a guy called Charbroil walks past. Okay. I don't know if you're aware of the figure. He's a G.I. Joe flamethrower from 1988, but he's wearing like a green. It looks green in the panel, but I can only imagine the artist is trying to evoke his Night Force look, which was like a midnight blue.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, interesting choice. Nice little member berry, if you if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Good stuff. And you're going to point out this, but I'm going to beat you to it because I've spotted something. Because I'm not good with the details, but I've spotted something that I know you would have brought up, and that's later on when we see Outback in his white shirt, and then next issue he's in his black shirt.
Ah, yes. Well, we had different artists, and I imagine the next crew are like, he's doing operations at night. Can we change his t-shirt to black, please?
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's a practical choice. I'll let that one slide.
I like to think, because it's obviously the white is white with black writing, and the black is a black shirt with white writing. I like to think that his shirt is reversible.
Hey, that's very cool. Very 90s, isn't it?
Yep. I've got a San Antonio Spurs basketball shirt, which is the same thing, reversible, and the colours invert when you flip it round. So, yeah,
cool, buddy.
I'm with Outback on that one.
2 shirts for the price of 1.
That's it.
Just watch out for the BO, brother.
I don't know. I'm just on that page now where the Blue Ninja pops up. So let's just crack on with them. One panel, Blue Ninja pops up, and he's in several panels actually before Road Pig tears him apart. When Pale Peony is escaping from the comic convention, she gets into a van, and we don't know if that's her accomplices or not. But as it turns out, I don't think it is, because next time we see her, she's in a locked box, and her Blue Ninja's coming to effectively put her away or question her, etc. Now, what were these Blue Ninjas' motivation here for capturing her? They're aware of this drive and they want to get their hands on it, I assume?
Yeah, it's not explained within these 2 issues, unfortunately. And Pale Peony's ninja skill seems to have failed her at the critical moments, because she got into a van that was clearly circumspect. I mean, like, the one guy had been eviscerated. The van itself had been, like, bisected, though it seems to have healed between issue 180 and issue 181. Correct. I don't know if you noticed, like, yeah. And the guy in the passenger seat, I don't know, either he was keeping mum or he was also dead. But she managed to board a van that her accomplices had been slaughtered, and there was a strange man or strange machine in the driver's seat.
Yeah,
weird.
Yeah. Nice to see Road Pig back, though. I like Road Pig.
Yeah, great to see Road Pig back. I wonder what he's all about. And he seems to have harmonized his split personality, at least in this issue.
Yes. Still rocking a codpiece, though, which is always good.
Outstanding.
As referenced in the Harmer pencils, later on in the next issue, he is literally going to try and take Pale Peony's head off with his mallet. So that would have been an interesting splash page if that had been allowed to go ahead.
Big time.
Carnage.
Shall we move on to the next issue, bud?
Yeah, let's do it. Quickly, that last one. The art I thought was fantastic. Gallant is fully in his stride now. It's literally, he's in his chief stride. He is hitting all the numbers, hitting all the spots. I can't fault any of the art there at all. It's fantastic. And moving on to the next issue, Ron Frenz, who is a big kind of, I think we mentioned previously, he's a big kind of superhero artist in the 80s, late 70s, did a lot of Spider-Man, actually did a lot of Marvel stuff especially, and I think his art here is fantastic as well.
Yes, good with the humans, but when trying to get the vehicles on model,
Yes.
there's some problems. I mean, we're spoiled because in the previous issue, Gallant's work on the AGP, the Hammer, and all the kind of cameo vehicles is dead on. The guy, it feels like he had the toys to hand.
Yeah.
Whereas Ron Frenz, if I was to guess, it almost feels like he had a minute to overview the toy,
Yeah.
and then kind of had to kind of draw it from memory, as it were, because the hammer that we see on the first page it looks kind of chibified. Yeah, it's squashed to fit the frame, and the weapons loadout is incorrect. The windows are incorrect.
So Darklon in this issue has escaped the pit. He's overpowered Roadblock, but Roadblock was in on it. The three Joes that are pursuing him in the desert are not aware of that, although they do come to that conclusion later that they're potentially in the dark about the whole scenario. They piece it together. And then Darklon, he's escaped, but he's aware of it as well, because he says the Joes are no fools. They know how to extrapolate and double thinking and even triple thinking. They know that I know that they let me escape. So he is even smarter than the Joes, we think.
Convoluted. But he says that the Joes will know that he left a sort of arms cache, but they don't know that it would be left with as the means to mitigate pursuit. But I mean, what else would a hidden arms cache be for, other than to like deter pursuers?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm so confused by that page particularly.
Unless he was talking, he says they will no doubt have assumed I have been left a cache, but he doesn't say weapons cache, so maybe they were just thinking an
supplies.
escape cache, supplies cache, not weapons. But surely they're going to leave him a weapon anyway. They're not going to leave him defenseless.
Oh, man.
But they've given him a sniper rifle.
It's dizzying. Yeah, no, he's definitely the hunted becoming the hunter at this stage. Yeah,
And so
big time.
his plan is just to escape, but along the way he's trying to, counteract and counter-think everyone. The Joe's plan was to let him escape and tag him, but if Darklon's so clever and he knows that they let him escape, surely he would know he's been tagged. Maybe in the next issue he deals with that, but I don't know.
Then there's some red herrings about the bloody Crichton being inside the Joe base and having some component that could be activated at close range.
Yes.
Which leads me to believe that maybe Darklon's real goal is to be recaptured. I mean, I don't remember what comes next, so this is my theory.
Okay.
That his goal is to be recaptured
Right.
now that he's in possession of something that will activate that Crichton and, I don't know, trigger some weapon system inside the Joe base. Hey,
Okay,
I'm
let's find
spitballing
out.
here.
Yeah.
But there's something that really, jumped out at me on the previous page.
Yes.
There's a dialogue between Duke and Scarlet, and it's got a killer punchline from Scarlet. I think she gets the real hero line in it, where Duke says, in reference to the three Joes who are out there without a clue that they're hunting a guy who's been let out on purpose.
Yeah.
And Duke says, they know the ROE, Scarlet. And Scarlet says, I'm sure they do, but Darklon doesn't abide by any ROE.
Yeah.
Which is a great bit of scripting in theory. But if you think about what Duke's actually saying, it makes no sense. Okay, rules of engagement are the rules under which a soldier can engage the enemy.
Yeah.
You can't shoot a person who's surrendering, or you can't shoot someone in the back who's running away, I guess, is something that they do later.
But if Darklon starts opening fire, I'm firing back.
Yeah, big time, absolutely. Those are the rules of engagement, but I just feel like what Duke should be saying at this point is something along the lines of, they know what they're up against.
Yeah.
Is what he should be saying. Because this has got nothing to do with rules of engagement.
No.
They know that they're up against a lone, cornered man. To which Scarlet could say, I'm sure they do know what they're up against, but they don't know why. You get what I'm saying? That fits the facts a little bit better than the scripting that's on the page.
Exactly. And it does feel a little bit like the reason why they're in the dark is purely for story progression. There's no logical reason really why they would be kept in the dark, I don't think. And the other thing is, when Darklon does escape and Muskrat doesn't, fire on him or doesn't try and get him, that doesn't really make any sense. If they're a man-hunting unit, they're going to have like tasers or stun weapons. So I think they probably could have captured him, but
or for keeping up appearances. Yeah, no, I here we see like the problem with G.I. Joe trying to operate a little bit too secretively.
yeah,
These layers of like pay grade and damn, man. I don't know, man. It's dizzying.
For me, these are actually only minor nitpicks. I don't actually mind any of this stuff. We're kind of
Sure.
pulling it apart a little bit. But when I was reading these two issues together, maybe we think about and we grade these issues differently when we're writing notes. As we're reading them, every now and again I'll see a panel or a page and I'll get the pen and paper out and I'll scribble some notes down just to reference them during the podcast. Maybe if I wasn't bothered about taking notes and I'm just reading it the first time round for fun, maybe you get a different view on it. Maybe over-analysation can be a problem.
Yeah, definitely. But there's no going back, man. How do I disengage my grown-up brain?
That's it.
Yeah, I want to be impressed, I guess. Maybe I've set the bar too high. It's a problem. It really is a problem, Chief. But then again, it makes it... When you have a absolute masterstroke come across your eyes, it makes that moment that much more sweet. When you're like, I can't fault this. And maybe we'll be encountering such a work very shortly.
Yes, I think you're right. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Special episode coming soon. Back to this one. Motivations. I want to jump on these again. Zorana and Road Pig had allied themselves with Pale Peony previously to her going to the comic convention, I think, hadn't they? And
Yeah. They definitely referenced that they had
a deal. And what was their motivation is they want to take over from, I guess, Darklon, Destro as arms suppliers themselves.
I think at this stage they were looking at being the middlemen.
Right.
They were going to work for Darklon and broker this deal that actually didn't come off. I am of the opinion that they don't know what they're doing.
Okay.
I mean, at the very end, Pale Peony has the line about wanting to insert themselves into the structure, not as a hostile takeover, but as a stealth merger.
That's it.
That's pretty vague. So it's leaving it open-ended, but it seems like they definitely have eyes on Darklon's organization.
Yeah,
big time.
A couple of bits to catch up on here. Interestingly, this, I think it does, most definitely, I think it does get fleshed out. Pale Peony mentions that she studied occult swordsmanship with Storm Shadow's aunt in the mountains of Akiyama Ken. Which is a little bit of a drop there of info, which will get picked up later. And then the kind of rest of the issue mainly is caught up with Outback, Muskrat, and Ambush in a standoff with Darklon, which was quite reminiscent of Ripcord and Zartan on Cobra Island. I thought from issue 46 or 47, I think it is.
Brilliant.
I quite like that stuff. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, and moved it quite a lick because fortunately there are a lot of wordless panels.
Yeah.
Very nice work, particularly with 4 inset panels, and that's kind of overlaid on top of a star field. And then beneath that, the star field kind of fades into Darklon, kind of creeping over a cliff edge. Yeah, very, very cool layouts. I think Ron Friends was showing off there. Nice. Do you feel like perhaps Road Pig has actually had a bit of a transplant of personality at this point? Because he's no longer Road Pig and Donald.
Yes.
It's now a case of like he's harmonized these two characters and he's got some tood, bro. Like, he snaps at Zorana and says, "Shut up, Zorana," which is something that I never would have imagined him saying because he absolutely kowtowed to her at every point possible as Donald. Yeah,
I think it's a combination probably of the meds he's been taking and the roids. So
Yeah.
mix up that cocktail, and I think you've got the new. I don't want to say improved because I don't want to say taking roids and mixing them with your meds is an improvement. But I'm going to say it. We've got the new and improved road pig.
Feels to me like there might be an element of 7-year itch as well. Like,
Yeah.
do you think maybe Zorana finally let him in?
I think possibly, yeah. Yeah, now she's regretting it.
Yeah, now he's got all this lip because
That's it, yeah.
that thing that he's pined for all his life. He
Yeah.
got it.
Little interlude as well we get in this one with Cobra Commander is exiting Brocker Beach. He sold it to those guys in that quality scene from the other issue. And we get something... Now, this pulled me into a movie I just watched recently. I watched the Matrix trilogy recently. And
Oh, nice.
the Clutch and Rock and Roll are tailing 3 guys. It's 3 CGs in a car. And they're all kind of acting as if they're... It felt like Agent Smithy to me. They're all kind of acting almost a little bit monotonous and robotic in the way they're talking and acting. And, yeah, they're either Terminators or Agent Smith. And they've kind of pulled back to... let the convoy effectively get away, and then they pull their shooters out and have a big firefight with Clutch and Rock and Roll. But I don't think it's going to be that hard to track a big convoy leaving a town, do you?
Look, I mean, it's so well publicized by this point that Broker Beach is Cobra's beach that, I mean, the fact that the Joes need to actually have, like, people on the ground physically tailing this convoy is a bit of a joke. I mean, surely they have multiple surveillance set up, both passive and active surveillance. So, like, yeah, it kind of harks back to some old tradecraft, but really it's unnecessary. A big, conspicuous convoy filled with Cobra tanks loaded into the back of trucks.
Probably Arbco Circus on the side as well.
Totally, man. This is, yeah.
I've got a military hardware question for you.
I'll try and answer.
So Rock and Roll pulls out the shooter, and he says, "I've loaded a special belt with alternating M61 and M62 armor piercing and tracer all the way." I've heard it lots of times in different forms, but I don't actually know what tracer is.
It's a bullet that's got a charge of, I think, phosphorus at the end. So
Okay.
as it flies out of the gun, you as the gunner, and I suppose anyone observing, actually sees a streak.
Right.
Because as bullets fly, typically you don't see anything.
Yes.
But a tracer round is specifically designed to be very bright. And even in daylight, you'll see it glinting.
So it's like an assistance in terms of seeing where your bullets are landing, effectively.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's yeah. But I mean, the side effect of it in this instance is that it actually sets the car alight.
Yes.
Because it is a burning charge of as I say, I think it's phosphorus at the end of the bullet.
Right. Okay. All right. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Wow, Chief, you didn't know that, buddy. Awesome.
Yeah, that's it. I'll tell you who else pops up at the end of this one. Lowlight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
He kind of saves Muskrat's life.
I mean, it's kind of his MO, isn't it? To be the night sniper. Perfect utilization. It's like, if Lowlight wasn't in this mission, we'd probably be scratching our heads saying, why wasn't Lowlight invited?
Yeah.
But good to know that, and it kind of serves to justify Duke's level of secrecy, because he had an ace card, kind of guardian angel, as it were, looking after these 3 guys anyway. So
Yeah. And
Good,
it kind of
good.
it kind of ends. That Darklon saga ends with him getting away, effectively. So he's got this Pythonized conquest. He's out of there.
where
We're
did
led
that
to
come
believe.
from?
Yeah.
It's just out of nowhere, man. We just parked a jet, an invisible
it.
jet. No Wonder Woman insights. But hey, did you check out the Evader getting a few panels?
The Evader.
Darklon's Evader.
Yeah.
He pulls a
Sweet.
tarpaulin off and...
Yeah.
Yeah. I quite like the redesign that Friends added. I mean, he's turned it into a half-track, which
Yes.
makes perfect sense to me. I mean, a recumbent bike on the desert floor makes very little sense.
Yeah, that looks cool. That's dying out for a custom build, that. I'm telling you.
Badass. Yeah. Jim, if you're listening.
Yeah, Jim, get on it. Get on it. Jim's been posting some wild stuff up on the Facebooks of all
The man is an artiste.
the custom stuff.
Genius.
That is phenomenal. Absolutely in awe of that. Listen, I also, lastly, before we move on, you mentioned Pelpini saying it's a stealth takeover. The panel before that, in several panels, they're all drinking cocktails out of pineapples. Road Pig's actually eating his pineapple.
Would you expect anything less? Yeah. Well,
There's a guy over his left shoulder who's
needs his
absolutely
vitamins to go with those roids.
Yeah, he's aghast. That guy over his left shoulder. He's like, "What do I let myself in for here?"
Nice.
Good stuff. Are we yo-joing or not? I think this is the middle of a story arc, so I'm potentially not. But this definitely gets a high 7 for me if we are yo-joing it.
Huh. Cool. All right. Yeah. Well, I would put it at a 7.
Okay.
Why not? Yeah. Why not?
Listen,
so arbitrary at this point.
We've talked comics, yeah, but now we need to talk toys, and I think you're the man to do that.
Steve talks about toys, ho ho. Steve talks about G.I. Joe. He talks about all the toys from the comic book and the animated show. Steve talks about toys. Steve talks about toys. Steve talks about toys. Steve talks about toys.
You bet, Chief. I've just dropped you a link instead of actual images this time because these guys do it a lot better than I could possibly.
Okay, I've got 2%.
It's 3D Joe's lady.
I've got 2% battery power, so let's see if it loads without closing down. Ah, there it is. Yeah, I got it.
Bam. 3D Joe's, and the vehicle under discussion today is none other than the high-tech attack jeep with dual missile launchers, aka 1990s Hammer. If the look of this vehicle is familiar, it should be.
Okay.
Because this is G.I. Joe's first take, and I'd say best take, on the ubiquitous Hummer.
Yeah.
Which is something that came into usage in the sort of the late or mid to late 80s in the United States Armed Forces. And G.I. Joe decided what better way to present the Hummer than by just slapping weapons all over it. This thing is so heavily armed. It's got 3 enormous cannons up front. 2 of them on these kind of arms that swing out.
Yep.
And they have a sort of 180-degree arc. The top-mounted turret has a 360-degree arc. And then mounted at the back, you've got 6 missiles, which are not spring-loaded, but they had a launching mechanism anyway, a sort of a manual mechanism called the finger flick technology, or FFT, which is basically like get your finger in position behind the missile and then flick the little tip that's exposed, and it would pop out the front, which is neat. It's nice to find your way around the spring action, but just makes me wonder why they didn't just go with spring action. I mean, 1990 was the year that started introducing that as a mechanism with your toy.
Okay.
It's huge, Chief. This vehicle, this Jeep, dwarfs all other Jeeps that come before it. And as far as I'm concerned, it's effectively a troop transport.
Right.
Because while they're 4 seated positions, just counting the number of foot pegs and gunner positions that this thing possesses, you could fit approximately 13 troops on here, no problem.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And the thing that I noticed, because I've actually had this vehicle to hand, I have it in my collection back home, courtesy of Jim Godfrey, actually. He gifted it to me some years back by now, but it's courtesy of him that I have the Hammer to begin with. But the thing you notice, so thanks Jim, but the thing you notice when you load this thing up with figures is it effectively doubles in weight.
Yeah.
It's quite a hollow vehicle, actually. It's a single stamp mold, so it's one piece of plastic that has plastic pieces then clicked onto it. It's not like it's a bottom and a half that are then married together. So on its own, it's quite lightweight. You start loading it up with figures and bam, that thing just becomes like lead.
Yeah.
Which is great. It's very, very satisfying to have like a hefty toy. But it is a ball ache to complete, let me tell you. If you don't happen to have one mint in box and you're looking to complete it on the aftermarket, this thing has so many parts to it. It's got one of the most difficult antennas, sort of a whip antenna that is almost always broken, because these things by their very nature have to be bent to be implemented. And you might see in the images it's kind of bent even further and kind of keyed into the roof of the vehicle. It's got a ammo box, which is a separate piece, a ammo belt, which is a separate piece.
Yep.
It's got seat belt clips, which are also a ball ache. I would suggest not even bothering if you don't have them with your hammer at the moment, because the idea was you clip them to the backs of your action figures before inserting them into the vehicle, and kind of sliding them very awkwardly into the backs of the seats, which had a slot. It never really works out because it's such a cramped seat to try and maneuver your paws into. I mean, you'd need the hands of a child to do it anyway.
Okay.
Grown-up hands just cannot manage that at all. But it has some very, very neat features, and there's a lot of care and engineering that went into this vehicle. I'd say it's excellent. It certainly is a standalone in the 90s as something that is kind of, it's 90s and bombastic in its weapons loadout, but the base vehicle is very realistic and very, very cool and well engineered. It's got an opening engine cover, but it flips forward like a Humvee's hood would.
Right.
Which is something that I don't think we've seen much of. I mean, sure, we've had engine covers aplenty in the G.I. Joe lines at this point, but this one is actually incorporated as a feature, and it flips forward, and it's realistic, and it's got a kind of a molded engine underneath with a bit of plastic detail brought out by a different plastic color. Hey, a bit of paint wouldn't go amiss to bring out the engine detail. Certainly something that I'm sure you would take to with some relish, Chief, after your minis. But yeah, man, it's nice to see that kind of detail incorporated into a vehicle. It didn't come with an action figure.
No.
Which is a shame. It's something this size really, it warrants an action figure, but at the same time, Jeeps coming with action figures I always thought was a bit of a wasted slot.
Yeah.
Because surely everyone in the G.I. Joe force should be able to drive something as basic as a Jeep.
Yeah. Is there anything in the line around this size, physical size, that also didn't come with a figure? Or
funny you should mention, because the Cobra answer to this, which is called the Cobra Rage,
right.
Which you might recall from those issues in which we had a high body count, the Saw Viper issues. So the Cobra Rage also didn't have an assigned figure, an operator.
Okay.
Which, once again, I don't have a problem with in the case of the Hammer, because it is just it's a pretty vanilla Jeep. Whereas the Rage seems more like a specialized attack vehicle.
Yeah.
So it's with some relief that in later iterations of the Rage, they've actually made it a designated Alley Viper vehicle.
Right, okay.
So the Alley Viper comes included with it, because it does seem like an urban operation vehicle. It's got a very low clearance, very highly armed, comes with mines. But we might get onto the Rage at a later stage.
Yes, yeah.
I just found this the perfect opportunity to talk about the Hammer, because it actually appears in both issues. And now that you've seen it, I think maybe you can agree that while Gallant nailed the appearance of the Hammer, like absolutely nailed it, even down to the weapons complement.
Yes.
Ron Friends was kind of drifting a little bit off model there.
Yeah. Now, most definitely, I think that's spot on summary of that. I never had one. This is probably at the tail end of my collecting anyway, but I'd seen catalogues with it in, and no, I was probably when was it, 1990? You say?
Yes.
Yeah, I was still collecting it at that time. But I didn't know anyone who had it, and I'd seen it in catalogues, and I was never a fan of it just from having looked at the pictures. It just felt a little bit too basic, and that's a strange word to say, because you look at all the adornments on it and all the arsenal and the ordnance. So, but like you say, strip that away, and it just feels like a kind of plain vanilla-ish Hummer style vehicle. And I think what had attracted me to G.I. Joe was almost the slightly outlandishness of the vehicles and the non-military spec almost. Although having said that, things like the aircraft, like the Sky Striker and Rattler, which are obviously based quite heavily on real-world examples, I was big fans of. But the land-based stuff, I kind of liked a little bit of extra flair to it that kind of set it apart. And I thought this was always a little bit looked a bit plain, and with all those weapons on it, made it look a bit silly. But now, looking at these images, I think I'm getting a bit more love for it now.
Look, it's over-designed. I think 3 massive guns, and they are oversized at that. 3 of them up front is perhaps too many.
Yeah.
You could trim that down, and it would be a far more tasteful vehicle. But I think what is, to its credit, is the fact that this late in the line, the 1990s, and they are still looking to real-world vehicles for inspiration. You know, we're awash with vehicles like the Cobra Hammerhead, which is totally sci-fi. You know, It's got all these detachable mini subs, great for play features, but like has no real world equivalent. To have something like the Hummer represented in G.I. Joe is something that I come back to as quite special. And they definitely took a lot of care and a lot of love to give it as much play feature as possible. There's a lot that comes in this set. It might not come with an occupant or an operator, but there's so much stuff. I didn't even get into the fact that the top turret detaches and has a separate tripod piece.
Oh, right.
Which you can actually store in the back of the hammer. Which, you know, the hammer, sort of the back section split open.
Yeah.
It's a little bit creaky, but you can open it up. There's storage for weapons in there.
Yeah, I'm looking at the other photos now. I'm looking at the 3D images rotating, and I can see it on the stand and that back split piece. Yeah.
Yeah, 2-piece tripod that you can then mount the machine gun to, and the removable box of ammo also has a slot inside the vehicle body, which is great. So you're getting a vehicle, but you're also getting a play pattern. You know, you could set up a sort of a lone machine gun post in addition to the hammer itself. So there's a lot of care being taken with this set, and I absolutely adore it. I think anyone who's snubbed it before, as I did, because I used to see catalog image of this and also I thought at the time it's over-designed, those cannons on the side look silly, the missile launchers are too much, it's like it needs to have less going on.
Yeah.
I think it's worth a second look. And it's got immense customizability as well.
Yeah, most definitely.
G.I. Joe, Hasbro, in fact, customized it themselves in the second issue of this mold, which came in 2002, called the Brawler. I think I sent you an image. They just popped off the top turret and, in its place, popped on a massive multi-missile launcher, which is a little bit audacious, but props for them for trying, man. They made something new out of this vehicle. It also featured a mottled camo pattern, which is a bit hit or miss. I don't know. Do you like it?
What, the Brawler?
Yeah.
I prefer the Hammer, I think.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think the camo is a bit weird. It's not very camo-ish.
No.
It's a bit too loud. But hey, it was 2002. We took what we could get. And then there was a convention exclusive in 2008, which was the last time we saw this mold. And it's kind of redressed it as a SWAT vehicle. Very, very cool. Did it up in black with some SWAT stickers. Came with an exclusive version of Bullhorn. And this is very sought after and very rare.
Yeah.
So if you see one, grab hold of it with all dear life.
It looks cool, man.
Very cool. And there you have it, the hammer.
The Hammer, I think I actually do. I'm looking at these. I've just been watching these images spin on my laptop for about 10 minutes as you've been talking, and every time it spins around, I'm like, actually, this is a cool vehicle. So my love for it is growing by the minute over here in Castle Chief. But I think I still prefer the Ore Striker as a jeepish vehicle, although this, like you mentioned, is more of a transport troop carrier rather than a two-person fast attack vehicle.
Look, anyone who's had the Ore Striker has marveled at its technical detail, but you've always thought, wouldn't it be cool if it had just 2 more seats?
Yeah, fact.
I guess the hammer does exactly that. It's kind of bigger, bolder, badder. You know, it kind of takes after the Desert Fox, which is what followed the Ore Striker in kind of the Jeep world. And this one just adds more places to put people, which is, you know, you can never argue with that. That's a lofty goal.
Good stuff.
It's been hammer time for a good long while. Let's move on, buddy.
Let's move on to start confusing people, because it's time for Commonwealth colloquialisms, aka over egging the pudding. We got a pudding. We got a pudding. We're gonna over-egg that pudding. Ain't got no criticisms. We got some Commonwealth colloquialisms. Right, so are you bookending? Are you got 2 this week?
All right, yeah, I once again have 2 this week,
Okay.
but I'm going to use one of the ones that I had for last week that didn't see use. Last week, in fact, was what they call Anzac Day here in Australia, and I suppose New Zealand as well, which is a commemorative day where basically pay tribute to war veterans.
Yes.
Of the various wars that Australia's had a hand in. And, I mean, it's a weird circumstance to be commemorating that, because obviously with social gatherings now a major no-no, people were encouraged to go into their driveways and light candles and just observe a moment's silence. And on the news, I caught wind of this term, which must be Aussie slang.
Okay.
But they call their armed forces, and I think particularly veterans, are called diggers.
Diggers.
And I'm not gonna research this because I think coming up with our own explanations is far more fun. But what do you think the relevance of diggers would be to the
Digger.
veteran
Now,
world?
as a kid, during a few years, there was definitely something that went round school where, like, you would just use and I don't think this is the same, but we would actually use the phrase "all right, digger," just as a "all right, mate" kind of thing. So digger substituted there, but I've since leaving school, I've never heard it or used it in that way since then. But in terms of calling war veterans diggers, I don't want to say it's something as simple as they used to dig stuff, so I'm not going to say that, and I'm going to pass.
Well, I am going to say that because I, as far as I can tell, I mean, you know, Anzac Day, the initial veterans that are celebrated or remembered are the First World War veterans. And I mean, the First World War was famously a sort of a stalemate, a war of attrition where both sides had kind of dug down into the earth and were sitting pretty or sitting ugly. I mean, the horrors of trench warfare are numerous.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that it was a war of trenches and a war of like digging into the earth, that's my guess.
Okay.
Shoot me down if I'm wrong, listeners.
Yeah, someone put him right or put him wrong.
What you got, Chiefy?
My one is the more I thought about it, the more I wish I'd changed it, because this may well just be a world colloquialism, as I previously done.
Too late.
This actually, I did quickly look it up just to see if it was British in origin, and what I looked up said its first use in print was in Australia in 1941, but I don't know about other places. But if someone was said to be up the duff...
You got me scratching my head.
Oh,
buddy.
really?
Yeah, you win.
Okay.
Hey, Chief! Buddy!
Hey!
Nailed it!
So yeah, my missus's friend, she is up the duff.
Okay,
As a
explain,
clue.
please.
She's pregnant.
Ha! Okay,
Yeah,
I never would have guessed.
Yeah, there you go. Up the duff means pregnant.
Up the duff.
Yeah. Not to be confused with up the chuff.
Which means you happy?
No. That probably means you take it in the bum.
Right. Gee whiz. Well, I mean, a hole's a goal, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Only one will get you pregnant. Geez, up the duff.
Yeah.
What do you imagine was the origin of that? I mean, hazard a guess.
I have got the page here, and I can read it up. This is on phrases.org. Up the duff is a euphemism for pregnant. It is used most commonly, although not exclusively, to describe unplanned pregnancy. I didn't know that bit. As with many English phrases that refer to sexual activity, we dive straight into a world of euphemism, and there are several obscuring layers here between penis and pregnancy.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know.
Jeez, Chief, doing the research, man.
There you go.
Shall I start calling you Diagnostic 74?
Diagnostic
75?
Diagnostic 69.
Very good.
So you've got another one for me.
Yeah, my South African one, simple, well, not so simple, I guess. I don't know. If I was to use the word schnolly, what do you imagine that would be?
Schnolly. Oh, pass us a schnolly, will you? No. Hey, look at the size of that schnolly. Just trying to use it in a sentence to see where it fits.
Oh, man. It's a euphemism for boogers or snot.
Okay. Right.
Schnolly.
Right.
Yeah. No idea where it comes from, but any South African worth his salt will know exactly what you're talking about. If
Schnolly.
you're like, oh, bro, I got schnollies for days.
Yeah. I like it. I'm going to start using it. Yeah. I never know what to say because quite often if Evelyn has like blown her nose, whatever, and then she's got like a booger in her nose, I don't want to say, hey, look at your booger. So I'm going to say, hey, Evelyn, you got a schnolly.
Nice.
Really confuse her and educate her.
Evelyn.
That's it. Cool, good stuff. I think we had 3 good ones there. And there'll be more of that next week. Crackers. But right now, we're going to close the show out with Listeners Answer a Question. Listeners Answer a Question. Posed by us, just for you. It's Listeners Answer a Question.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. So this week we asked you, with the untimely passing of Hector Garrido, famous for doing a lot of the early action, the battle card action images that were on
Card art,
that
maybe?
were on I don't even know what I'm saying here. Famous for doing a lot of the card art.
Very good.
Were you ever prompted to buy a figure based on that card art alone? Now, I think going in here, you personally would have suspected it would have been quite high.
Absolutely, Chief. If I look back at my early purchases as a child, I think I was completely blinded by the artwork.
Right.
I seldom judged the figure on its own merits. It was always about the artwork. And not only the artwork when you're in the store in the flesh, because that moment is always very fleeting. I'm talking mainly about being back home, looking at the card back, and these little inset images. Because they didn't put photographs of the action figures on the backs of the cards.
No.
They put the artworks, and the artworks were etched indelibly in my mind. I'd made my mind up which figures I wanted to prioritize long before I got into the store. So it was like I was a heat seeker, man. I was a guided missile. I was going straight in for the kill by the time I went to, the weekly family supermarket run.
Yeah.
So it came as a big surprise that respondents were saying, hell no, I didn't judge it on the artwork at all. Most notably, Jim Godfrey was like a big no to that question. So, but then by the same token, your buddy Mark Seddon, he's like, Major Blood's action figure looks damn awkward next to the incredible Garrido artwork alongside.
Yeah.
Which just adds detail. It's fuel for your imagination. You kind of insert those details into the action figure itself, imbue the action figure with those details that you're gleaning from the card art, so that in your mind's eye as a child, I'm really paraphrasing what Mark said, maybe I should just quote him instead, but in your mind's eye, and this is true for me as well, when you're playing, you're imagining that artwork in play.
Yes.
And that was what the Hydra Viper was to me. The action figure rattling alongside in the blister is one thing, but the artwork, which looks absolutely horrifying. I don't know if you can recall the Hydra Viper's card art, but he truly does look like a creature in it.
Right.
You're left asking he's got talons and a webbed hand. I mean, he looks inhuman. Add to that the fact that the card art talks about various elective surgeries that he's had to become even less human and more resistant to working at depths. And you're like, yeah, man, all of a sudden the figure's appearance you forget about. It's all this other information that is informing how cool this guy is.
Yeah. I think we had good responses as always, so thanks to the listeners for putting up your responses across all the forms of social media that we put the question out to. And yeah, there was definitely, I think, an early trend in the responses that weren't necessarily saying they bought figures purely based on the card art. There were a couple. A lot of people were just mentioning some of the really cool card art, especially by Hector and other artists. And I don't think that's ever in question that the card art was fantastic. And then, like you said, there was definitely a pocket of people that the card art played no part in their purchasing of figures. So
yeah, like Bart Simon, my goodness.
Yeah.
Some very strongly worded hell knows.
I mean, me personally, I'm just trying to think now. My phone has literally run out of battery. I tried sending you a couple of images, but the phone died as I did it. I've just pulled out a bag full of, I don't know, about 20 or 30 card backs that I found. And
well, this is radio after all. Let's,
yeah. So
let's not abuse the sharing of images too much.
No, obviously, I'll post. I think I posted these up in the early days of Talking Joe, a collection of my card backs. But I'm just looking and I'm thinking, especially that, because I only really went full on in the figures for maybe the first UK wise, the first 3 seasons, I think. And I was always getting the kind of little catalogues, the little the leaflets, and obviously that had all the figures in that series on there anyway. So I think it was definitely a case of looking at the card art and thinking, these guys look cool, but I was mainly referencing the catalogue to see which figures I like the look of. And being a completist, I would try and get every single figure anyway. So it wasn't necessarily, I need to get this guy because he looks cool. Maybe it was just whatever was on display in the supermarket I would pick up.
I had to prioritize, man.
Having said that, the bazooka card art was definitely, I've got to get that. That's a figure I definitely want to get off the basis of looking at that card art. And also the eels. I thought the eel card art was like, this guy looks like some kind of super espionage trooper. I definitely want to get him. So that was a couple that definitely stood out for me.
Smudger, your pal, he says that practically all of his purchases were guided by the artwork, which is quite heartwarming.
Yeah, it's very
and
good.
he buys original carded figures now. Damn, boy,
Wicked.
That takes some budget. Nice.
Is it? I'm as I mention every week, I'm out of touch with the kind of adult collecting market, but based on what you're saying there, expensive for certain figures or lines, or is there, as with every kind of carded retro action figures, is there a discrepancy in price across the series and across the individual figures?
Look, the high demand items will always cost an absolute mint. Anything of the 1985 vintage is premium.
Yes.
Or earlier. 90s figures are still affordable on card. When I say affordable, like between, I don't know, $40 and $100.
Okay.
For pretty much anything released in the latter part of the G.I. Joe A Real American Hero run.
Yep.
But it's creeping up. But then again, I don't really purchase or trade in carded figures, so I don't know what the market's doing. But obviously, there is a big split between 80s and 90s. And within the 80s, earlier 80s will command a premium, and then it kind of goes by character. Like Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes, Firefly, those are the guys that are really gonna hurt your wallet.
Yeah. And is that? I guess that's purely based on print run or availability, or just
desirability.
Desirability.
I mean, if there is only one carded action figure that you could own, what would it be, Chief? Good question, actually. Steve asked Chief a question. Steve asked Chief a question. What'll he say? What'll he do?
That's a good question, but I don't know. It's one carded figure. It's almost, and this is not to downplay or sully anyone who collects carded figures, because more power to you. That's I think they look great, but the figure being in a box on a card, I don't know if it does anything more for me than just having the loose figure and the card loose. Having them married together, for me personally, doesn't really do anything for me. So having it mint on card, I don't know. It's just almost like asking me what's my favourite action figure, or what's my favourite.
Gee,
I don't know.
That's a good answer, Chief,
Card
because
art.
you're right. What does it add to have the figure joined to the card? If anything, it creates an interruption between you and the artwork. If you can get a card that has minimal tearing on the artwork, that's absolute winner. And that's why they do the sort of reproduction cards these days. People actually have been gluing action figures back on. You kind of get reproduction cards, reproduction bubbles, and you kind of do it yourself.
Oh, really?
DIY kits. Yeah. Crazy.
Cool.
It's actually become a problem on the secondary market because a lot of these things are being sold as original.
Oh,
but
shit,
they're actually
no.
recards. Yeah. I scored 2 figures from a listener to the G.I. Joe Book Pod. He had recards that he bought as originals. The seller hadn't actually realized this and actually made amends afterwards. He managed to get a successful claim
that's
through
nice.
through eBay. But he gifted them to me because he was like, I want them to be opened, and I know you're the man to open. Because you like to play with your toys.
That's it.
Because, he didn't want anyone to be confused by these later on down the line in their lifespan.
Yeah.
But why would one recard? I guess the answer is just to have that joy encapsulated of like going into like maybe a virtual or no sort of you can create your own toy aisles basically and hang these on your wall and relive the experience of going to a toy store in the 80s and seeing these figures hanging on their blister cards. I mean, that is definitely an experience that is gone from the world.
I'm just lastly to round off this segment, I'm just poring over some of these card backs I've got. And I'm coming to look at that Road Pig one, jeepers. I'm coming to the realisation that if I hadn't have had those leaflets, those catalogues to show me the figures that were in the line, I think I would have most definitely chosen figures based off this card art. I really do.
Yeah, Road Pig is particularly good.
So
Just the various tones on his flesh.
yeah,
I mean, he's kind of glistening. He looks
just the angle. There's just the
power personified. That's a term I learned from the chief.
power personified.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just looking at this particular one, what is this card for? It's for the Cobra Battle Gear accessory pack number 2. It cost me £1.33 from Asda. And looking at this one,
Those were the days.
looking at this one, I'm not going to buy a wetsuit figure based on that card art. I'm probably not going to buy a dial tone. Lifeline looks cool. That's a good crouching pose on Lifeline. I like that. Jinx and Raptor are pretty uninspiring, I think. Techno Viper looks cool. Falcon looks cool with kind of low hung shotgun. Yeah. Hydro Viper, yeah. I'm definitely buying that figure based on that. Blizzard, love that action pose. Anyway, I could go on all day. But yeah, good stuff. Thanks to the responses from the listeners. As always, we can't do this without you, so keep up the good work. We'll be back next week with another couple of issues. If you want to do your homework and read ahead, please feel free. It's up to you. We're not going to police it or clamp down on you if you don't do it, because we can't do that. We've got no way of finding you. But if you want to get in touch, you can do so in all the usual places. That's talkingjoecomics@gmail.com. If you're an old-fashioned guy, shout out to Sam Myers, who sent another email our way. So appreciate the kind words, fella. Hope you're doing well. You can also find us on Twitter. That's talking_Joe. And find us on Instagram. That's Talking Joe Comics. Also, the Facebook group has been getting some new members recently, so thanks to all the new people that have joined the Facebook group recently. It's Talking Joe, a G.I. Joe podcast, I think. Something like that. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm doing these days. Way past my bedtime. But where can the good folks find you if they want to see your stuff?
Hey, you know what? Well, if you want to see my stuff particularly, G.I. Joeberg is what you want to hit, but you can find me on all the Talking Joe socials as well. I'll be sure to respond to anyone who calls me out personally, or anyone who just wants to have a chat. Bam! I'll be there. I'll be in the comments threads.
Yeah, good stuff, good stuff. With all that said and done, we will see you down the road.
Yo, Joe.